Fun-filled night here on the set of Spirit Connections, live every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Ba-da-boom, boom. If I had a drum set, it would sound much better than that. So I'm so happy we had a week off, and we're back on track. And I'm so excited for tonight because not only do I have one wonderful guest, I have two other oddballs with us joining Steph. So tonight I welcome Mr. Tim Weisberg from Spooky Southcoast and author of Ghosts of the Southcoast. And what's your new book called?
Haunted Objects, Stories of Ghosts on Your Shelf. So compared to some of the other book titles that are out there these days, that's pretty short.
It is pretty short.
Yeah.
And then in the chat room tonight we have Mr. Andrew Lake, Stephanie Burke, and Matt Moniz.
Howdy.
How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty damn good.
Excellent.
Good. I'm so excited.
My suspicions are confirmed. Matt Moniz is Spider-Man.
So I'm pretty excited. How many times have I used excited already? I guess I'm just
It is
really
exciting
yeah.
night,
It's
so I don't
very
blame you.
exciting. It's very exciting. I have a week off, and I
Obviously did not read the thesaurus. during your
exactly
week off.
exactly.
No,
So I
she
just
didn't.
used that one phrase or that one word. Excited, but I have a big announcement to make. As of September 4th, the first week in September, Spirit Connection goes to 7 p.m. Drum roll, please. 7 p.m.
You kind of skipped that
At the
part. We were all ready.
We're all ready.
And you said it too fast.
Because I was
Excited.
excited. So I'm really happy that it's going to be at 7 p.m. and I figured it'd be a little bit earlier, and then that way you guys have plenty of time to go round one with me and then go round two with Mr. Jeff Belanger on his show, 30 Odd Minutes, which airs on Tuesday nights as well. So I figured it would be fantastic. And of course, for you American Idol fans, you can always tune into them as well, which is usually, January through May? You guys? Anyone?
I think so.
Well, just as long as the kids can get home and the street lights come on.
Exactly.
That's the most important
Exactly.
thing.
So, Tim, thank you for coming back on. I know you've made a couple appearances since we've been here at the studio. The first time I had you on was last August, talking about your book, Ghosts of the Southcoast. And now, a year later, you have another book.
Yeah, it works out pretty well that way. Keeps the bills paid.
So you're going
Not really.
a book
Not
book a year, right?
No. This
It
book
just-
has actually been in the works for quite a few years. I think it's been a 3-year process. Excuse me. It was, we were first contacted about it quite a while ago, and then it sat for a while with the publishers as they were trying to decide what to do, because the publisher's not really a paranormal publisher, so this was going to be their first ghost book. And so it took a while to get the approval process. First it was going to be a coffee table book with, pictures and all kinds of stuff, and then it was going to be a hardcover, and it ended up just being a regular trade paperback. And now, 3 years later, it's finally out on the shelves.
Now, you co-wrote the book with Chris Balzano, is that correct?
Yeah,
Did I have that
originally
right?
he was the one who was originally approached about the project, and he didn't have time, and because he's a teacher and he's in Florida and they're doing all the state testing, he had to work on all that stuff. So he had mentioned it to me, and I said, well, it sounds like something I'd be interested in. And the more I started to get excited for it, it kind of rubbed off on him, and he's like, I think I want to do this, because we decided instead of just taking objects and kind of investigating these stories to see if they're true, as we normally would as investigative writers, we decided instead to just have fun with it, tell the stories, and actually get into the folklore and the mythology of haunted objects. So it was a lot more fun, and it worked out great together.
So now, with this book, I'm assuming that you had to go through a lot of research. Was it any personal experiences in the book, or?
I did share one of my own personal experiences, and Chris shared a couple of his own. And then in one instance, I actually had one of the haunted objects come to my house in the hopes of having more experiences to write about with it. But a few little odd things happened, but I can't really say that anything happened as a result.
Okay. Would you want to share one of the stories, like a quick little incident that you
Well,
may
sure.
have had,
It was a doll, Claire
Okay.
the doll, and I actually brought her into Spooky Southcoast for one night, and cameras acted a little funny, And I brought her into my sports show that I do for the Standard Times. It's similar to Spooky South Coast with the cameras. And those cameras went way off whack.
Where is she tonight?
She went back to her owner
Oh, okay.
a few months ago. And I had, in my office at home, the temperature kept turning up on its own.
Really?
Which we don't have, at the time my desk was so high we couldn't reach the thermostat. But we would go in there, it'd be warm, and we'd see that somebody had turned the thermostat up. So I guess she didn't like the cold.
So, can you give me a little history behind Claire? Where did she come from?
It's a fascinating story because it gets to the very nature of a haunted object. Does it come to people already haunted, or is it the spirit of a loved one who attaches itself to it? That's the question that you have to ask about so many of these objects. And with Claire the doll, it was given to Jill, her owner, by an old woman who found her in her house, and she had no idea where the doll had come from. But she happened to live in a house that in the early 1900s there was a train wreck.
Speak
Wow.
of the devil.
But there was a train wreck right outside of her house, and something like 15 people had died. And they found the doll in the closet of the house. I'm listening for a crash now.
Perfect
I know. For those of you at home, there's actually a train going by. I don't know if you can hear it or not.
So the woman found this doll in her house one day while cleaning out a closet. She had no idea where it came from, but she thought that it looked like Jill, so she brought it to Jill's house and gave it to her. And almost immediately, things started going haywire in the house. Jill would wake up to have a woman screaming in her face. Then the doll would move things around the room. You know, you'd come into the room, things weren't where they were. At one point, she was missing a ring, and she ended up finding the ring in the apron pocket of the doll's dress. And really the night that sent her over the edge was when she woke up. All of her music boxes in the room, because she collected music boxes, they all went off all at the same time. And when she looked over at the doll who was sitting in a rocking chair across the room, the doll turned her head to look at her. And
Don't go on. I'm
I had this-
actually like getting really creeped
I
out.
have this doll in my possession, and it's one of those porcelain dolls where the head is kind of stitched. The
Right.
porcelain head is stitched to the cloth body, so the head does not move. But somehow or another, it turned its head and looked right at her.
Just like that.
Yeah. Well, probably scarier than that, not as goofy.
Seriously, that freaks me out. There's another, on a side note, but it just made me think of it. You guys, please help me out, because I know you know the answer to this, but there's a haunted doll story.
Robert the doll?
Thank you.
Yeah,
I knew it
we
wouldn't
write
take
about him in
long.
the book, too. And we write also about Annabelle the doll, which is in the possession of Lorraine Warren. Some people, they just can't handle the dolls.
No, I would not like to have a doll in my house just for that reason.
You weren't a big kid sister or a cricket fan when you were a kid?
No.
We had the
No.
My Buddy. That went under the bed right after Child's Play came out.
Well, we're the same age.
We are.
Yeah, we are.
I'm only 29.
I'm 21.
Okay.
But
No, I know
yeah,
we're the same age.
we're the same.
I'm
We're the
just
same
kidding.
age. So I grew up the same time frame as you with having the My Buddy and
And we were almost taught from the beginning that dolls are scary.
right.
I mean, if it's two things we know to be afraid of, it's dolls and clowns. And God forbid if there's a clown doll, you might as well just move.
You should dress up like a clown for Halloween.
You think so?
Yeah, I want to have.
Why?
I'd have to register with like the sex offender
I know.
registry if I dressed up as a clown.
Well, because I want to have for Spirit Connections. Halloween's obviously the 31st, but the Tuesday before is the 30th. And last year, Steph and I dressed up. And I'd love to have
We
you guys.
did.
I'm inviting you right now. If
My
you are not
makeshift
busy, I know you guys
costume.
really want to come on dressed up, but I'm inviting you on because I
Are
think we
costumes
should.
mandatory?
Yes, of course.
I threw my costume together in 5 minutes before the show.
She had like a
last
full
time.
body unitard.
No, I
You
didn't.
did. You were like, I'm a kitty.
I've
There's
seen,
always
like that.
I've seen the
standby. Just
pictures.
grab a white sheet and there you go.
I like that idea better. I will hide under the sheet the whole time.
You want to hear a secret? I don't know if you know this or not, but that's not real behind us. Just wear a green shirt and you can be whatever you want.
I can be the couch.
You could be the head, the floating head. I love it.
I'll look like I'm peering over the couch the whole time.
I think Moniz and I will come down. I'll dress as Tiffany. You can dress as Stephanie.
I love it.
And I can dress as Tim, and Steph can dress as Matt.
Andy, you can dress
See
as
that?
Matt.
Or just somebody horribly shocked.
I think it's good. I'm surprised I'm not getting more commentary from you two, because I'm.
I was trying to think because you said that Andy can be Matt, so who am I gonna be? What am I gonna do?
You can be Warren. Okay, so anyway, moving on. It's something to mull over. We can think about it. We have some
Or
time.
we could all go with a theme too.
That's what I was
I
just
like
gonna
the
say.
theme.
I
We
think
can
we
all
should
go
go
with
with the
the theme.
theme. Like we can be the zookeepers, and they can all dress in like different zoo animal costumes. That would be great.
I think that would be good.
I want to be a lion tamer.
I say we dress as the Marx Brothers. There was 5 originally.
Well, you know what? You have it here on Spirit Connections,
I think
October
people should
30th.
vote. We should
Yeah,
have
we
a-
can
should
vote.
have
Put a poll up online. You can make
Yeah.
Facebook polls pretty easy.
Yeah.
Make a Facebook poll. Put that up there.
What should we dress as for our Halloween show?
I like that. Also, if you guys have suggestions for the show, just throwing it out there, feel free. I love hearing suggestions. So whether it's about the Halloween or whether it's about wanting someone of your liking to come on, feel free to
Keeping
let
me
me
off.
know. Yeah. If you guys don't want to see Tim anymore, just let me
Please
know. So getting back to what we were talking about the haunted objects, and of course I asked you about your personal experience with Claire. And so do you find it objects more to be haunted that are human-like, like a doll, or would you say that it could just...
It's amazing, the stories that we got. I expected the dolls.
Mhm.
I expected jewelry. I expected things like that. Things that would mean something to somebody. I wasn't expecting to get a story about a butter dish. But we got one. From somebody right here in Wareham, too.
Really?
Yeah, it was the grandmother had given this butter dish to her granddaughter, and when she passed on, the butter dish would move around on its own, and that was the only item in the house that they ever had issues with. So she just assumed it was the spirit
Issues.
of her grandmother. Well,
I mean,
it's just a mild issue, butter dishes moving around the room.
But it's true. I mean, during readings, sometimes I'll bring up something that's so out of this world, and they'll say, yes, I have a story about it, and it's the same type of thing. Like, maybe it's like a family heirloom, or just even something that maybe a loved one has, bought for that person, It could be anything. Yes, Andrew?
No, I was just going to ask, Tim, speaking of Wareham, did you guys cover the possessed violin of Wareham?
I did, yeah. I wrote about that. That was actually the story that I included with the proposal for the book to kind of sell them
Yeah.
on it, and which was really interesting because I went beyond just telling the story of the violin,
Okay.
and I kind of made some connections. And that's what we did with the book. We tried to go beyond just the story itself and see what the common motifs were for those items. And I wrote about how the devil went down to Georgia, and I wrote about how violins have been connected to the other side. And there was one particular, and I'm going to screw this up, but there was a composer named Tartan or Tartini or something, and when Moniz, you might be able to fill in on this a little bit. There's an acoustic phenomena when certain notes are played close together on a scale. The ear will hear the notes that are in between those notes.
Oh.
So even though you're not actually playing
Right.
them, and they're called tartan tones, I believe, and they're also known as ghost tones, which I thought was, and the violin is
Spooky.
one
Very interesting.
one thing where it actually happens quite a bit because the notes are so close in range on the violin. So it was really interesting getting down into that stuff. The stories themselves were really cool, but it was the bigger picture. The trees were nice, but the forest was prettier.
Now,
Wow.
the case in the Wareham, though, is what was it was a certain one melody and banging and
He would play that one particular melody, and
was it
there
Unchained Melody or something like that? or I
the
forget.
unbroken unbroken medley, I think it was
Yeah.
called, and it would start rattling the pipes in the kitchen.
Or wherever he was. It happened
And
in
he
New
would go
Bedford
from house to house, and
Yeah.
they would ask him to play it, and it would happen no matter where they were. And they thought that it might have been just the particular pitch,
Right.
but
Harmonic resonance.
but it turned out not to be that. I mean, they tried in a number of different instances, but it was always, I guess, the kitchen pipes or whatever. So
That's interesting.
and violently too. It's not just like where they would
Yeah.
shake a little bit. It was violent. So.
And I do want to, on a side note, Andy, you brought up Unchained Melody, which was also featured in the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg
yeah.
and Patrick
Yeah.
Swayze.
Little connections
A
here.
little connection.
All of a sudden,
Fair
a penny
connection.
comes floating by us.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I know that much about Ghost. I just lost my man card.
Check
I
that.
had to think about what part of the movie that was too.
For luck. Hey, no, but seriously, when we're talking about the movie Ghost, though, I mean, if you talk to anybody that has abilities such as yourself, especially people who can see these things before them, they always say that those scenes in the movie where somebody passes on and the black creatures come up and try to take the soul away. I mean, a lot of people have said that that's actually pretty accurate. for
I've used
what you're
that
saying.
movie to help untrained people understand a haunting going on in their house. I've actually used that film to go, well, you know that scene in Ghost where, you know, just so people have some way of, relating
Right,
to
that
it.
scene where they're
I
making
don't-
the clay
I mean,
pot, too, that's exactly
It
how
is a
everybody's-
romantic chick flick, but
Yeah.
I thought Ghost was pretty well written and had some basis of paranormal theory.
It is. No,
Yeah.
it really was. I'm
Yeah.
being facetious here.
But you did lose your man card, so did I.
yeah.
But,
Since we did, we might as
But
well
it was a
just go all
good
out.
movie. It was a good movie. It really was.
But of course, my favorite Swayze film, Roadhouse.
yes.
Man card back.
My way or the highway, yeah.
Oh, Patrick Swayze, rest in peace.
I was going to go with Red Dawn.
That's pretty good too.
I saw that a
As long as you didn't
time
go with
ago.
Tu Wong Fu, thanks for everything, Julie Newmar, because then you would have really lost the man card. Oh, there goes my man card. I knew the whole title.
Matt's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, he
that
knows.
one.
It's right on it's on a shelf between Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and what's it?
Ashtar?
No, Shock Treatment, the sequel to Rocky Horror.
Oh, God.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so moving on.
I pick on him on my show. I got to pick on him on your show too.
No, that's fine. I love this little banter going back and forth. I love it. I love it. This is what I want. So, Steph, I saw you writing.
Yes. It's a little off topic, but
Okay.
kind of on topic
So
at the
are
same
we.
time. Absolutely. Do you know anything about the Fairbanks house in Dedham?
No. The only thing I know about in Dedham was Fontaine's Chicken. The place was awesome. But
Is that haunted?
well, it's no longer there, so just the ghost of the flavors linger. But no, I've never heard about that. But
Okay.
it sounds like something interesting. I'm always looking for more stories from places, and I find that there's probably more per square foot around that 128 loop. I mean, there's so many stories. It might help to do with the fact that it's some of the oldest places in the area. But, you would think Boston area, Plymouth. You'd be getting all kinds of stuff out of Plymouth because from the 1620s on. But I hear very little from Plymouth. I know, Moniz, you've been doing this a long time. I mean, it seems like you would expect to hear reports constantly from Plymouth, and we don't really hear that much.
As far as just the public places, only the places that we know of that aren't open to history. There are a handful of private homes that I've heard numerous,
But
but you don't get, publicly.
what's funny is I stopped counting almost private hauntings as like when I'm taking a Gallup poll of where's the most haunted areas. I don't include the private homes anymore because so much of those hauntings could be related to the people that live there
Right.
or to things that happened on that property itself. It's not the same as when you're talking about historic haunts, which is really what my focus is more on. If somebody calls up and is like, I need help, there's something going on in my house, I always refer them to either Moniz or to a group. And I've given you
Right.
calls. And,
Yeah.
but when it comes to public places, those are the ones that I want to check out. Maybe because it's open to more people, so there's more chances of phenomena happening.
And they
We'll
got
have
gift
to
shops.
talk. Yeah.
Right.
We'll have to talk after the show.
Remember that saying that Steve said on Ghost Hunters, that any place with a gift shop can't be haunted?
How
I
many
bet-
places have they been to that have had gift
Yeah.
shops since then?
How many gift shops have they stocked since then?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yes.
sure they've changed their tune a little bit there. And
Hey, I know a gas station that's haunted.
really,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Very
right?
good, very good witnesses too.
I thought you were going to say very good burritos.
No, but the ghosts do like to pick the weenies off the rotisserie at 3 o'clock in the morning and just drop them in
Really?
there.
So do the drunks, but
Yeah, some of the drunks, but
It's not the one where
is it a
Sausage Hunt
24
works, is
hour?
it?
Yeah.
yes, it is. It's a 24-hour gas station, and we know what was there before the gas station was
Yeah.
built.
Oh, okay.
It's 2 children and an old man.
Playing with hot dogs.
But hey, speaking of possessed items, what about John Zaffis?
He's pretty possessed.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean his collection of
Yeah.
items? Yeah, well, he's probably the foremost known collector of these things. We did put a chapter in the book about different museums and different places where people can go and see these haunted objects. And we didn't get to actually talk to John because he's writing his own book.
Right.
And he has a show out.
Yep, haunted collector, yeah. And so some of the items that we wrote about, though, is in particular one case, these 2 Haitian masks were actually supposed to be sent to John Zaffis, but they never made it. These masks are, the story of these masks is incredible. It's one of the first stories I received. A good friend of ours, Jeanette, out in California, who I think, I know Moniz has met her, I think you might have met her, Andy. She's been a long-time investigator and demonologist. And she moved to this house. It was her dream house. And she had to move out to this house in California because her brother was dying, and she wanted to be with her brother. But they made the most out of it. They found the place that they had always wanted, and she always wanted to have Haitian masks hanging on the wall. So she ordered 2 from Port-au-Prince. And when her husband went to go pick them up, he almost got into a car accident. His brakes were dead on his car. And the masks almost decapitated him when he finally did come to a stop. And then she hung them on the wall. Glasses would break for no reason while people were all in the room. The dog would not walk by them. All these strange incidents were happening. And she kind of got the feeling that something wasn't quite right with them. It was when mysterious holes started showing up all around her yard, like deep holes. And she started to get concerned somebody could fall into one in the dark and break their neck, that she finally decided to get rid of them. And so she had them shipped to John Zaffis, and they brought them to the post office, but they never arrived.
So they're somewhere missing?
Nobody knows where they are.
Dead letters.
Maybe. I think if somebody had similar problems though in the post office, they probably just took them out back and burned them.
Right.
One
Which is-
final comment about John Zaffis. Rachel Chavez Coombs, of Bay State Paranormal, said she has one of Zaffis's books, and no matter who has it, the strangest bad luck happens around that book, whether it's in someone's cubicle at work or been in her house, and all this stuff has gone back to the book. She says, I know that sounds ridiculous that a paperback, a John Zaffis book would be possessed, but she says she's let people borrow it and never said anything about this phenomena, and they'll go, you know, it's weird. Ever since I started reading that book you gave me, I've had like stuff falling off the walls, and so she's going, is it possible that a paperback could have picked something up?
Has she thought about contacting John and sending it back to him?
I don't know. We didn't get that far in the conversation, but I just thought that was rather funny.
Because if she did, then that would work out pretty well for him because he made the money
And
off
then
her
get the
buying it,
money.
and then he could resell it again. So.
Or just put it in his museum and charge tickets for it.
Hey, Rachel gets props anyway because she handled that death sauce like a champion. When we had that in the studio.
That stuff was evil.
Yeah.
She loves hot sauce.
What was it on the what's it the Scoville
Yeah,
scale?
yeah.
And what was the
Yeah.
number on it? It was like an 18 or something.
Oh, it was insane.
Yeah.
She took me out for chicken wings in Plymouth. They were good.
Yeah. Well, they
And she
spice-
says there are a lot of haunts in that town, by the way.
Yeah, but private versus
No,
public?
some of the businesses, they don't like talking about them.
No, that's-
She was pointing a few places out and said they just don't like talking about the activity.
That's the brick wall that I've hit.
Yep.
Because
Well,
we,
there's, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I was trying to put together a Legend Trips event for Plymouth because I figure, November, everybody wants to go to Plymouth for Thanksgiving, but I can't find any public places that are willing to talk about it. I've had a few places that have said, yeah, nothing really goes on, you're welcome to come here and check it out. But any place where people have reported stories, like nothing. There's the old library downtown. There's the courthouse, which if we could ever get in there, they don't even let groups in there anymore to investigate. Then there's Coles Hill, where the museum is, where all the pilgrims were buried.
The old burial ground.
Yep. And then there's I've always had creepy experiences at the Faith Monument, the Forefathers Monument. And when I was younger, my dad used to work early in the morning, and I used to go with him, and we'd stop there, and I would see people kind of walking around. I thought it was him playing tricks on me, but nope. Something was moving around there that by the time I got over to it, it was gone.
I've had some experiences at some places in Plymouth that I was able to get into. So,
Cool stuff,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. We'll
Plymouth-
talk. We have a lot to talk about after the show.
Plymouth Plantation.
Yes.
Now, the problem with Plymouth Plantation is the people that are there have been very adamant about not, it's almost like the brick wall that I've hit with
Yeah.
Battleship Cove. You know, it's like, we can go there, we can check it out, but if we find anything, we can't talk about it.
Matt and I know somebody who worked there for a time, and after her first run-in with one of the ghosts, the women who worked with her were like, get used to it, because when we close down this place at night, that's when they come crawling out of the woodwork.
But they're not allowed to talk about it
No.
publicly,
Right.
No.
which is the issue. I mean,
I used to
I
hate
want to
them.
find
Gotcha.
places that I can bring people into.
Hated it.
That's what's so fun about these Legend Trips events is
Right.
we're opening up historic places to people. And it's nice that they can go and learn and hear about the ghosts, but I want them to go and hear about the history. You know, I mean, how many people would not know about Fearing Tavern if we didn't do events there, you know?
Well, I mean, I talk about the guys at Rise Up, Ken and Dave DaCosta, who have the Nathaniel Green Homestead and the Payne House, same type of situation. You know, they're actually helping the Historical Society by, you know, allowing people to kind of go into the house and explore, and all proceeds go to the restoration of these buildings that.
And I mean, I don't mean to brag, but we did Haunted History Night last year, and we
Right.
gave the Historical Society more money in one night than they made in tours all summer.
Right.
That was
Right,
great.
and that's what it's all about when
Yeah.
we get involved with these historical societies and them allowing us to enter into these historical locations.
Mhm.
You know, it's a learning process for everybody,
And
and
it kinda-
everybody wins.
It's something that I've been kind of following along with a lot lately, and Chris Balzano and I have been
Mm-hmm.
talking about quite a bit, is that stigma of being haunted, is it gone? I mean, is it more beneficial now for a place to be haunted than, you know, it was 10 years ago? Now it's almost like everybody who checks into a bed and breakfast, they ask the manager, any ghosts here? Are there any stories about anything? Or anybody that goes into any old building, you know, they want to know about the ghost stories. It's become, I don't want to say it's become accepted, because you still have people who are like, no, I'm not going to go in there if it's haunted, but it's more in the conversation than it ever has been.
Right, well, because there's so much more exposure out there now, too.
Mhm.
You know, and it's good, and it has its perks, and it has its negatives to it, too.
Well, because then
know?
you also have the people that are going to, you know, play that up. Anybody that has a bed and breakfast now knows that they can get twice as much money for the haunted room
Right.
on the anniversary of the murders.
Right,
you know.
exactly.
I say that not, you know, obviously we know of actual haunted bed and breakfasts that can get more money on the anniversary of the murders, but when people are creating the entire backstory themselves. But then that goes into a whole different school of paranormal investigation, because if they are creating this backstory and they are proclaiming that it's haunted, I believe that after a while, those ghosts will exist.
Well, you're manifesting.
Yeah.
You know, you're manifesting whatever it is that, I mean, whether it's, and we'll go into this location about bread and breakfast that is haunted by murders, supposedly. But, you know, that's what happens, is that it may not be, say, the particular Eastern State Penitentiary, okay? Al Capone's cell is there.
Mhm.
So I think sometimes people might go in thinking that they're going to contact Al Capone. Well, what about all the other 1,000 people that
Yeah.
were part of that prison, you know? And so I feel like you have to kind of go into an investigation or exploration, whatever it is that you want to call it, with an open mind, that it may not be that particular person. It may be, say, the maid that
But
actually
see, I go
haunts
even deeper than that. There could be no I mean, I don't believe that there isn't ghosts. Like, I don't think there's any place that doesn't have the potential for activity. But you can go somewhere where it's a completely sterile environment, where there's no ghosts, no spirits, nothing. And if you spend enough time interacting with them, then they come into being. And so if you think Al Capone's cell is haunted by the spirit of Al Capone, and enough people go there and think that, then after time, Al Capone's going to be there. And I start to wonder if that's some of these famous ghosts, if that's what's happening.
with all the attention,
Mhm.
whereas for so many times that have passed, we haven't really given it much thought.
I mean, I don't want to disparage Lizzie Borden's, because, you know, we have lots of great activity there, but how do we know that it isn't a creation of the people that go there and try to talk to the Borden spirits or try to talk to Lizzie? You know, it could be something else masquerading as them, or it could be something that was created out of nothing. I mean, there are cases of it. The Tibetans call them tulpas. The more modern term for it is thought forms. Was it 74 or 76, the Philip experiments of the
74.
Toronto Society for Psychical Research. And they basically created an entire story for a ghost that did not exist. They made the story up 100%. And they held seances. And they contacted this spirit that didn't exist. And they would ask it questions in relation to the backstory that they created. And this spirit would knock, spell out words, whatever it did, and would confirm the details of the story that they made up. So how does that happen? They created a ghost out of thin air. Was it their own minds that were, using their own
intention?
The same way some people
Right.
say a Ouija board works?
Right.
Or did they actually create something out of nothing? I would think that...
Or could something have been watching them because they're generating an interest in this? Okay,
Yep,
you
I'll
want
play
me
along.
to play this
Yeah.
character? I'll play this character for you.
Right.
But the interesting thing about a lot of these cases is, and if you talk to somebody like Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who's done a lot of research into these type of phenomena, you'll find out that after they've created these ghosts, and after they've finished whatever their intention was with these ghosts, the ghosts still exist. So even though you created Philip, and you're done with your testing of Philip, and nobody's talking about Philip, so therefore there is no more Philip, well, you created Philip. And now Philip's upset because he wants to know who he is and why he is, and he doesn't quite understand. These were creatures that were created a lot of times for people as part of a curse.
Mm-hmm.
In old times, they'd curse somebody and they'd create these entities to go and harass people. And then when the curse was supposedly lifted, these entities still existed. So then we're left to deal with them.
We just got deep on Spirit Connections. Okay. Well, it definitely brings up a lot, like all of our guest stuff. And every time someone starts talking, we also have that glazed over look like, because it does. It opens up a whole plethora of questions.
That's why radio is so much easier.
Yeah,
They can't
I know.
tell when you're looking there like... like we had a great experience this past Saturday night with our guest, Thomas Fusco. It was kind of rough going in the first hour with some of his theories because they are so radical. But when we were able to bring it down in the second hour to apply his theory to actual paranormal investigation, it kind of opened up doors that people had never thought of opening before. And that's all you can do is listen. That's the way to do it.
I like it. I like it,
Theater
though.
of the mind.
Right.
It's true, though, So, this does bring up another portion that I want. I feel like we never have enough time, even though we have an hour. I'm like, I want to talk about this too, because now that you just said this, I had, this theory of creating, the whole creation of, are we creating forms now, spirit forms or like Matt said, are other spirits wanting to imitate what we want them to imitate, So you did bring up the Lizzie Borden house, and there's always a lot of theories behind that because she is an alleged
Acquitted.
thank you, allegedly and acquitted axe murderer. So which also brings up, so we have this house in Fall River, the Lizzie Borden's house, and which you're having an investigation on August 25th
Right. Yep.
for Legend Trips.
Sold out.
And you also have my ghost story for it.
Mhm.
And there's so much history behind this, so much to talk about. Okay, so I'll get right into it. So now, do you think at that particular location, since you have so much familiarity,
Familiarity.
thank you,
I always trip on that one too. Don't worry about it.
with it, what do you think? Do you think a lot of that has to do with Lizzie or Andrew Morse or anybody else?
My theory on that has not really wavered over the years. It's kind of been strengthened, excuse me, by our investigations there and our events there. At first, I was just like everybody else. I assumed that, first of all, everybody goes there assuming that Lizzie Borden's ghost is there.
Absolutely.
And I don't know why they would go in there thinking that, because Lizzie Borden moved from that house after the murders and never went back. Loved the house that she lived in on the other side. I know.
What
it
is
was,
that?
I saw it over there earlier, and I wasn't quite sure.
Well, I saw you look back, and I thought you saw somebody. Okay.
No, you're the one with those abilities.
Bug flying around the imaginary living room.
But
It's on our couch.
real bug. Imaginary one. But so I don't think Lizzie would be there necessarily. And then other people say, well, she's trapped there because she's damned. But I did expect that the spirits of Andrew and Abby Borden would be there. And over the years, there's been a lot of people with abilities who have come back and said, yes, I've contacted Andrew, I've contacted Abby. There's been EVPs that reinforce that it's them that you're speaking to. There's EVPs that I've heard that we've been there when they're captured that sound like Lizzie, what we think Lizzie might sound like. My real theory on it, though, is that there's something else in that house, something darker that's been there long before the Borden murders, that might be what you might call an elemental energy, something that's just tied to the land.
Mm-hmm.
And that, because there were murders in that house before the Bordens lived there was murders on the property. The 2 children that were killed next door, well, the 3 children that were killed next door, but the only 2 of them are supposedly haunting the house, by a relative of the Bordens.
Not to mention the suicide of the mother that killed them.
Right. She drowned them in the well behind the house and then went upstairs and slit her own throat. And then after, the story gets a little bit muddled after the Bordens, but there's rumors that there were people that died in the house after that too. So this thing, if it's there, just feeds off of this. And the way I kind of look at it is, if you're going and having something to eat, it's nice to just pig out and eat all you want and then take a long nap after it. But then you realize when you wake up that maybe that's not the way to go. The best way to go is to eat just a little bit and kind of maintain instead of overdoing it. And I think that's what happened with this negative energy. I think it fed off the Borden's already dysfunction that was there before they moved in the house. And it realized something was happening that benefited it. It may have influenced Lizzie or whoever committed the murders. It may not have, but the murders happened. And so that was like one big meal for it, and it went to sleep for a while. And ever since it opened up as a bed and breakfast, everybody goes in there talking about murder, 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 and in some cases incest, all different theories that are put out there about it. And this is like giving it a whole bunch of little mini meals. So it's kind of learned to play along. If it plays the game, then people are going to keep coming back and keep talking about this stuff and keep feeding it those negative emotions that it craves. So is it Andrew and Abby? Is it Lizzie? Could be. Could it also be this dark thing pretending to be them? I think that's what it is. Because I've gone head to head with it on more than a few occasions, as Matt and Andy can attest to. And it doesn't like me very much.
The house beats the snot out of them.
I deserve it. I ask for it.
You provoke.
I do. And a lot of people have mixed emotions about provoking on an investigation. I hear some people saying it's not respectful to the spirits. I hear other people saying it's not effective with the spirits because they retreat when you act that way. I find that being forceful can get you results. I've been forceful on a number of investigations and I've gotten results. Being disrespectful is a different story. And when I go to the Borden house, I will be disrespectful to this thing because I want to draw it out. I hate to sound like a Zach Bagans, but I will. I'll challenge it. And actually, when we filmed Ghost Adventures there, that was my final advice to Zach as we were leaving. I looked at him and I said, just do what you do, bro. That's the place where it would happen. And it's happened to me. I mean, when I challenge it, it fights back. And over the years, it's kind of progressed. And I'm not talking when we do the Legend Trips events. When we do those, people are having experiences, sure, but it's not as problematic as it is when Moniz and I might be there by ourselves. And over the years, it's progressed to the point where, it would choke me, it would throw me up against the wall, push me down a flight of stairs, or push me up a flight of stairs. And now it's to the point where...
The table?
Yeah, the table got pushed against me. We've heard it growl. This was, as weird as it is to capture an EVP, it's even weirder when you're in a room and everybody in the room hears this low, long, guttural growl. and then immediately goes and plays back all their tape recorders and video cameras.
And nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And we've had that happen, and now it's to the point where it will, it'll visualize for us. It comes in the form of a shadow figure that we chase around the basement with no stopping until it finally just decides to disappear.
Yeah, Tim, do you remember when I was down there with my infrared full spectrum camera and I was taking those pictures and you came up behind me and I turned around, and as soon as I turned around you started to talk and your eyes came out of your head and you went and you said something darted behind me. All that time I took about 36 pictures and nothing's showing up. I turned my back as you're walking towards me and you're like,
Because it's messing with you.
Yeah.
That's what it does.
Yeah.
I mean, Moniz and I were down there with a couple of kids who had never gone ghost hunting before.
Yep.
They were on. It was the anniversary of the murders, and they were there just visiting the house. And so we stopped by, and they asked us to help them out and show them some of the hot spots. And we could just see this shadow figure moving back and forth. And
It made no bones about it being there, showing itself to people, whether you believed or disbelieved. You could not argue that this thing was walking in front of light, blocking it out.
no, what was bothersome about it is it was staring us down.
Yeah.
It stood there and stared at us. And if you moved, it moved. And it's not one of those things where, okay, I moved and now that moved, so it could be my shadow. You would move and it would wait.
Follow you.
And then it would move a few feet. So, and it was really good at when we cornered it in one part of the, because you've been in there, right? The
Right,
basement
right.
is segmented.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you'd go into one segment of the basement and it would jump into the other one. So I'd be in one end, Moniz would be in the other, and I'd be like, he just jumped out of here. And Moniz would be like, he just ran across the middle. And like it wasn't like a shadow on the wall, it was a three-dimensional figure. And it was one of the strangest things that I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like I'm going to have to go. I want to go back. Yeah. So.
I haven't been
It's-
back in a long time, but I can definitely say that is the one and only place that I have ever provoked. And the results that I came out of there with, I will never forget for the rest of my life. Stuff happens to me in that house that has never happened to me anywhere else. I can walk into, I've been places like the Sam West house, even Anne Marie's house,
Yes.
and nothing like that has ever happened to me before.
As I warn people when we go to these Legend Trips events there, I warn
Right.
people, I say, listen, it's not a game here. You know, it might be fun at other places. You know, we went to Slater Mill, we had a great
Yeah.
time. You know, we don't really know what it was that we were chasing around there, but it's easy to have fun in that type of environment. You're taking a chance when you go to Lizzie Borden's with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it might be bad for business as a bed and breakfast to say that, but I can't not say that to people because I wouldn't be warning them. I mean, we make everybody that comes to our events sign a liability waiver, and that house is the main reason why.
Well, you've experienced. That's why. It's all.
Well, when I interviewed Leanne for my book, I asked her, I said, tell me the best story that's one of your guests have experienced. She says, I never get to hear those stories because they leave before morning. She says
Exactly.
she's seen so many people in their jammies with their bags went down
no.
and throw bags in the car and boom, they're out of there. So their stories we'll never hear out of that
She
place.
should have a half night rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She actually has a sign up that says if you leave in the middle of the night, there's no refunds.
Yeah, no refunds.
That's it.
I enjoy watching the physical objects move about the house. The things I've seen move in that house.
Last autumn, the chair you saw.
Yeah, chairs, pictures thrown about the place, other little objects moving here and there. The toys I think were the creepiest because you're dealing with
Children.
yeah children or what have you. Because I opened up the lid to the toy box and I said, okay, I want you kids to play nice. Shut the door. I was outside in one of the other rooms, never left the third floor. Hours later, I go back, open up the door, and there's the toys all placed around the floor.
See, people ask me, what's the most profound thing that you've experienced at Lizzie Borden's? And being choked and thrown against the wall and things like that, those are pretty profound. But one of the things that amazed me the most is the whole Lizzie Borden phenomena for us started with the leg lifting incident.
Yeah.
Right.
Where my legs were lifted off the side of the bed and held there. And we've seen people do it with bare feet. We've seen people do it with different shoes on where you can see the handprints of a hand that you can't see, the fingers, the indentation of the fingers. And one of the most profound things that I ever saw was when Stephanie did it. and what, it was something like 90 minutes that you had
It
your
was a
legs straight
ridiculous
out
amount of
for.
time, but like I told you, I have arthritis bad in both of my knees. There's no way I could hold my legs up.
I don't think
without them
any human being
shaking
could
or
for that
anything.
long.
You'd see like even like my ab muscles or something just clenching, and I was just laying there fine, just talking to everybody. People were coming in and taking pictures, but that was definitely one of the weirdest experiences I had in that house
And it
because I
just
just figured I'd lay down and try it.
Looked like something was holding them.
It
you know,
was, and you
just-
could see like my pants were almost like they looked like little hands were holding my legs of my pants up.
We had videotape of the handprints actually happening on Brian Hanwa's feet at one point. Don't know what happened to those videos anymore, but
He probably paid to have them destroyed after the way he reacted to it.
yeah.
Well,
That was a classic.
yeah, I mean, you got a very vulgar EVP when requesting a leg lift.
Mm-hmm.
At one time, you kept asking, can you do it again, and play back the audio, and somebody definitely did not want to play with you that night. They were
Now,
very
is
very
there
rude
any
about it.
is there any history behind the leg lift? Like, why would they want to
No,
do
it
a
was
leg
it was
lift?
actually it was completely accidental that it happened. The first the first time that I ever went there, I didn't think that it was haunted. I kind of walked out with that Steve Gonzalez. There's nothing happening here, but that's because I went at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday. When I first went there to investigate, Jeanette, who had those Haitian masks, she had actually come from California and rented out the whole house for her birthday. And she was a fan of the show, so she said, will you guys come and investigate with me? Yeah. So we go there, and there was a time when I just needed to take a break on the 3rd floor. So I went and I laid down on the bed. This is in the Hosea Knowlton room, the chimney room. And I went and I laid down on the bed, and the bed is perpendicular with the doorway. So I wanted to lay in such a fashion that I could be facing the door so that people would see me if they came in. And so I was laying with my legs hanging off the side of the bed. And all of a sudden I felt this strange coldness over me. So everybody was in the next
Chest,
room.
yeah.
I called them in. They'd got their thermometers and everything else, EMF, and they're taking readings. And sure enough, there was a cold spot forming there. There were EMF spikes, and I started to feel like a tingling. And what was weird is Moniz and some of the other people were holding their hands over mine, and they could feel it too. And I just had my hands kind of crossed, but I had my hands crossed like this. And I said, if there's something here, can you do something? Can you show me that you're here? Can you knock on the wall? Can you shake me? Can you lift my legs up? And when I said that, all of a sudden I could feel 2 hands wrap around my ankles and start picking my legs up. And it would be one thing if it happened to just me. I would
Personal story.
freely allow anybody to question the validity of the story because it's just happening to me. But it's happened to so many people over the years, and it doesn't make any sense.
It's also happened to guests that are unfamiliar with that occurrence. Guests that aren't there for, the spookiness of it, laying in bed and have it happen to them.
And strangely enough, I did a test, and I did, in an investigation in another part of Fall River, I had other people try it in this other location about 1.5 miles away, and it happened there too, which I couldn't figure out why that would be the case. But I just wonder, now I know differently because I've had those spirits from Lizzie Borden follow me other places. When that nasty thing talked to me over at the Fearing Tavern, I told him, get out of here, you don't belong here. Because it has kind of showed up in other places. But the leg lifting is really amazing because it's almost like that's the way to convince the people who come in skeptically. And it seems like all the most ardent skeptics are the ones that have it happen to them. The people that there's no way they would ever do it and say that it was happening to them, And there's ways to tell if somebody's holding their legs out on their own. Moniz is really good at studying the physiology of the person, and he'll look and he'll check the tendons because you'll have your tendons stressed if
Right.
you're holding your legs out, and after a while they will start to wobble and waver if you're holding them out. That doesn't happen. It just looks like somebody's relaxed and somebody's holding up their hands. And I've seen it happen slowly. Sometimes it takes 20 minutes to get one leg to lift up. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. And I've seen it happen very quickly. That's what happened with Brian Hanwa. We told him about the phenomenon, and he's like, dude,
yeah,
I'm going to debunk that. There's no way that's true. I'm going to debunk that. So we march upstairs, and he lays down, and he starts provoking pretty hardcore, him and I both. And finally, it just got so mad at him, instead of lifting up his foot, it grabbed the top of his shoe and yanked his leg up. And he bolted up out of that bed, and he's like, I'm out of here, and he took off. So all these years that he's tried to claim Dude Run was, not him running away from the ghost. Yeah, I'm going to think that it was.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
ran from this thing.
I love. Oh. See, we have to go back.
Yes, we do.
We do.
I haven't been since the first Dead of Winter event that you guys had.
2008 was the last time I went.
Oh, we've gotten much better at running them since then.
So I think that was like the first one you ever did there, and it was interesting that night too. But my first ever experience, I mean, I had the girl that was running the seance there was asking us questions like, "Oh, do you guys know the answers to this?" And I was telling her the answers every time. I was still in the closet then. I wasn't telling anybody I had any ability for anything, but she's like, "That's so weird. How do you know all that?" And I was just like, I don't know. But we were table tipping on a table that was much too heavy to tip at all, and it was knocking, and it was awful. But one of my friends, who was a Fall River police officer, provoked and got the table shoved against him and was locked into the corner of the wall. Like, he couldn't move.
Same thing
that happened to
So-
our guest here, Mr. Weisberg, yeah.
And another, I think
Yeah.
it was the same event when the seance was going on. That's when all of a sudden somebody noticed my shirt was getting lifted up
And they
on the
got
side
photographed.
and snapped a photo. And in that photo, you can see like a red streak right over where
I
the
have
shirt is.
a red streak in one of my photos that I took that
Really?
night. But
Yeah.
if you lifted up the back of my shirt that night, they did in the parking lot, I had welts and bruises and scratches all over my back.
Well, Liz,
From
the
provoking.
psychic, the house psychic there, she was part of our investigation in 2007 when we caught these EVPs and when Matt captured that camera moving on its own that's on YouTube. And we could actually see like scratches and welts rising up on her skin when she's claimed she was under attack by Mr. Borden. And that's when I said, don't pick on her, pick on somebody your own size. I won't even fight back. And I put my arms up like this. And that's
Got
when I felt
shoved.
the two arms grab my elbows and wrestled me up against the wall. I mean, Moniz, you saw that firsthand too. I'm not that good enough of an actor to.
No, when I saw the hand imprints on the forearms and stuff, and him going back, and his eyes got about that big, the total look of I'm in trouble as he went back to the wall. Yeah, that.
Yeah, but I did tell it to keep going. I did keep challenging it. And don't forget too, like in that room too, that's the Morse room where Abby Borden
Right.
was
was
killed.
killed. Yeah.
That's the same room where prior to that, when we were there with Chris Moon, we were standing there doing an EVP session, and I couldn't
Getting
stay on
pushed
my
up.
feet.
Yeah.
I kept knocking back into the door, and he turns around. He's like, "Dude, stop!" I was like, "I can't help it." Every time I tried to stand still, something was knocking me back against the wall. Well, against
Now,
the
let
door.
me ask you this, because in the John V. Morse room, on the area where Abby was murdered, isn't there a section where you can feel off-kiltered?
All the floorboards in the house are a little bit weird, and that's what I thought we were feeling. That's what I thought might have been happening that night. So I moved a step over, and I was still getting knocked back. And Moniz was right next to me on the same floorboard, and he wasn't moving. I don't really have great balance, but I'm usually I'm able to stand still.
Well, this brings me up to another topic. See, we should just have a 2-hour show with you on, because I know we only have a few more minutes left. But Steph brought up the Dead of Winter. I brought up, what I'm going to bring up now, I should say, is Haunted History Night. Second time around is happening October 20th.
Yes.
So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, it's going to be another great night at the Fearing Tavern here in Wareham. It's actually, we call it Haunted History Night because there's 4 buildings that the Wareham Historical Society owns all in that corner, and they let us investigate all of them. There's the one-room schoolhouse, the Methodist Meeting House, the Union Chapel, and the Fearing Tavern itself. And we've had phenomenal experiences in the tavern. We were the first people ever allowed to investigate in there, and there's only really been a small amount of people that have been in London since. And it was so profound that we started sharing the stories with people, and they all wanted to get in on it. So this is the way that we were able to do it, mainly because the Historical Society, they're not ghost people. They don't know how to handle this, so we said,
Right,
we'll take
right.
care of it for you. And it turned into just a great event. You get dinner, you get lectures. We're going to have a live taping of 30-odd minutes.
Foot massage from Jeff Belanger.
If you want one, he'll
Yes.
give you one. Just please wear clean socks. And then after that, it's hours of investigation. And the way our investigations work for these Legend Trips events, as you know, is we station our celebrity guests, our group leaders, we call them. we station one person in each location. So I might be in the tavern, Matt might be in the schoolhouse, Andy might be in the
Also
meeting
with a
house.
member of the Historic Society, which is also very
Correct.
helpful.
Right, to be able to
So
provide
if somebody's got an
information.
historic question,
And we rotate the groups from building to building. So you have the opportunity to investigate with each one of us, and we all have different styles, different approaches, and we bring different equipment. So you get the chance to kind of see all these different approaches. And we have a mixture of both first-timers and seasoned investigators. So people who have never done this before can learn from other attendees, and people who've been doing it for a while get to see what it's like, remember what it's like to go do it for the first time, and kind of gain some of that wonder back. So it's a nice balance. It's only $99 for a ticket. You're getting dinner out of it. And, of
And you
course,
get to meet so many people.
I mean, I'm not saying it can happen again, but, Amy Bruni stopped by 2 of our events
Right.
when she's in the area. We've got friends on the inside, as they say, who like to come by and check out these events.
Steph and I will be there doing readings.
And that's a new thing that we added
Yeah.
at the Slater Mill event that worked out great. People can go and have a 20-minute reading with you for $30.
Yeah.
And they get private time one-on-one. It's not like you're with the rest of the group and, being singled out. Some people I know aren't comfortable with a gallery reading, so this is your chance to get some one-on-one time. And you don't really miss that much out of the event. We work it out pretty well.
Exactly, and like you said, it worked out well at Slater Mill, and I'm excited to be part of it again.
And the best part is you and Stephanie will stick around.
And I love it.
You'll be part of the investigation, so it's like,
Yeah.
not to call you guys a couple of tools, but it's like having tools in the toolbox.
Right.
Right.
when, when Tiffany by mistake showed up in the chapel, where
I
I
got
was stationed
lost.
all night, she came in and realized, oh, I'm in the wrong building, but decided to stay. That's when I finally had activity toward the end of the night. Myself and one other gentleman, we saw a spark of light in the middle of the aisle of the church. And Tiff picked up that it was a little kid, and we had a very interesting session with the historian and one of the flashlights. I'm a skeptic with the flashlight bit, but Tiffany and the historian got some very interesting answers that were backed up by an obvious.
I'm a skeptic with a lot of people with abilities.
Yeah.
But, not that I ever really questioned your abilities, because I've known people who've had readings that have come back and said, she's the real deal. But I saw firsthand for myself when myself and 2 of the people that were in the Fearing Tavern with me were communicating over a ghost box with her deceased stepfather. And he was telling us all kinds of information over this device. And Tiffany came into the room about 5 minutes later from another part of the building. And she came in, she had no knowledge of what we were talking about, but the spirit was there, and she interacted with it, and she basically said verbatim all the same information that came over the
Yeah.
box.
Yeah.
So to me, that was pretty good. So good work.
Yay!
Good work for you.
spirits! Yay, spirits! Oh, and of course I dropped my mic.
You do it every show.
Yeah, every show.
Every show.
No matter what. I
was
have 2
wondering when you were
minutes
gonna do
left,
it.
And I thought, hey. But like I said, we only have 2 minutes left. So I want you to let everybody know where they can find you, Spooky South Coast, how they can get tickets to Haunted History Night, and where they can find your book. Go.
Well, the best way to get a hold of me ever is SpookySouthcoast.com. You can watch and listen to all our shows. We do have in-studio cameras if you want to check that out. And then we have the podcast as well. If you want to buy tickets to any of our events, legendtrips.com is the website. And if you get on our mailing list, you get first crack at tickets whenever we have an event. So anybody that's on the mailing list or has attended a past event, they always get first crack. And Lizzie Borden, that sells out before we even get off the pre-sale. And if you want to pick up the book, it's available from Amazon or any bookstore. Haunted Objects, Stories of Ghosts on Your Shelf. And, I'll have them at some of these events that we're doing, and I'll have them at the library lectures that I got coming up. So find me, chances are you'll find a book.
October 11th, you have a lecture.
October 11th at the
No, I
Wareham
can say
Free
that.
Library at 7 p.m. And then the Wednesday of that week and the Wednesday after, 2 weeks from that, I think it's the 24th, and I can't remember the dates, but I'll be at the Bourne Library. So, and one of those events is going to be a Paranormal 101, where you can actually come and learn how to
Excellent.
investigate.
Hopefully before the Para Night, and then Haunted History Night, and then.
Right, it will be, so you'll get a chance to get a taste for it.
Same.
And I'll have tickets for sale. And anytime you see me, you want to buy a book, I even take credit cards now, right on my phone.
Oh, see, you have to teach me how to do that.
Oh, it's easy.
For whatever it is that I need a credit card for. But I want to thank you again for being part of Spirit Connections and
thanks for
helping
having
us
me.
out all the time. And thank you to you guys for keeping it down in the chat room. And, as always, I love you guys. So until next time, guys, to get your tickets, go to SpookySouthcoast.com/legendtrips.
SpookySouthcoast.com, you'll find everything there. It's all right in your face.
In your face. And we'll see you next week. Have a good night, guys.